This video is a rant. You could just play this whatever you're doing, Uh, I don't know. You might just want some background noise, something like that. You might genuinely be watching this to listen to somebody rant. But whatever your purpose is here, here's the main thing you need to know. I'm not really going to be stopping editing or anything like that. The gameplay, it's going to be whatever I could scrap together for now until I actually get to recording 30-minute sessions of gameplay. So, here we go. As we all know, Cyberpunk 2077 came out, and it did come out with a bit of controversy in the hardware department, being as on older consoles it just doesn't perform as well. And even if you're not a hardcore gamer, or even just a gamer in general, you'll know that there's been a lot of hype surrounding Cyberpunk 2077. And it's quite a disappointment to a lot of these people who have been so excited to, get their hands on this game and play it. And due to the fact that they have a older gen console, because really this game was being aimed towards the older gen consoles, it underperforms. And that's not really something a consumer should be having to deal with. And that's not even something that should really even have to be stated, right? And really, I feel that a game like Cyberpunk, I definitely could have waited a little more to get my hands on it, and to wait for its hardware and everything else just to be sorted out, cleaned up, bugs taken out, hardware problems being fixed. And so for now, I really think I'm not going to be buying any of the new gen video games until I get myself a next gen console, because really I feel like this is just the way it's going to be for all next gen video games coming out. And well, this is where I get into my Battlefield 6 tie-in here. So for Battlefield 6, what I'd really like to see is a unique system, but a little bit of incorporation from everything, really. Every game, every Battlefield game, more specifically. A little less from certain titles, but a little more from certain ones. But really, you can't blame me for some of my preferences, seeing as I really only recently got into Battlefield, thanks to Battlefield 1. And, well, my preferences are obviously going to lead more towards the Battlefield 1 aspects over Battlefield 3s or Battlefield 4s or Hardline or 1943 or titles like that, older titles that I didn't actually get to play. So yeah. So what I've been thinking about is just how much of a train wreck, absolute train wreck, Battlefield 5 was. The game came out with a lot of hype, and then the trailer released, and that trailer, the first original trailer, had such a high number of dislikes, and it was just such a weird, it just didn't belong in a World War II inspired shooter, and not even inspired, based. It was just too playful, too cartoony. In all seriousness, the Battlefield 1 official release trailer we got was something far more epic than what we saw for Battlefield 5. And really, that was all the beginning of the downfall of Battlefield 5. It started during that trailer, and it ended with the last couple of updates and patches. From personal experience, I could say that I somewhat do regret buying the game. Somewhat as in, it's an alright World War II shooter. It's not anything out of the water. It's not extraordinary. It's not praiseworthy. But at the same time, what can you expect? This was a rushed game. It's very evidenced it's a rushed game. I would have much rather have waited for either Battlefield 5 to have come out a little later, or for them to have just left a gap in the Battlefield series from Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 6. But overall, it's an alright shooter, but it's not the best. Some examples of some mechanics that I don't like are team switching to being disabled. That's something I really don't like. Balancing issues and all that result from that. Usually, things like 10 players on the enemy team, you're down 10 players, they have 10 more than you, and auto balancing doesn't happen. And there's no team switching, so if somebody wants to decide, I'll try to make it fair and switch, they can't, because team switching isn't a thing. Not being able to customize straight from the menu is also another thing. And what I mean by that is the respawn menu and vehicles, things like that. You can't change the kit on them in the respawn menu. And I'll say that's very essential to gameplay, being as, let's say the enemy has air superiority and you have this tank, and this tank is specifically suited for destroying other tanks, right? But you have this other package or upgrade tree that allows it to become a mobile AA gun, basically. And you try to switch it, but you can't. You're looking around and you just can't switch it. Why is that? Because to switch up the kit, you have to go all the way out into the main menu of the game. And then what's the point? You've already left the game. What's the point of switching the kit? And I'd say that's really important. Battlefield 1 never deprived you of that feature, and it's actually quite important. Because depending on the way a battle is going, that can really depend on what type of vehicle you need. For example, if there's some sort of match heavily dominated by tanks and you just need overall superiority over the other tanks, something like a anti-tank kit will really help. But if you're trying to play for the objective or anti-infantry, something like a howitzer and a flamethrower tree will suffice. Same thing goes with aircraft trees. And do I really not like the leveling system? The leveling system is it's just very frustrating. You need to put actual time and dedication into the game. And the worst part is that skill gap. If you're new to Battlefield 5, you're going to be having a hard time in planes, tanks, and all types of vehicles like that. Why? Because everybody else already has max upgraded tank trees and plane trees. And well, what can you do about that? Well, EA and DICE present you with the perfect option. a pilot pack, a pilot shortcut kit, which basically gives you access to all those upgrades, but you have to pay for it. Is it worth your money? Not really. Is it worth your time? I'd say it is. But really, is it worth your effort? You're gonna have to put in a lot of effort before you can even really get enough upgrades to level the playing field. Trust me, I say this from experience. I've had this game for 5 months now, and almost every time I've gotten into a plane or tank, I'm taken out by an enemy player who has a max level tank or plane. And it's just really frustrating due to the fact that they can do all sorts of things, you know. They have 6 light machine guns. They have their engine can go faster than mine. They have an extended height ceiling and all that. And it just makes it really hard to even get enough points to be able to level up and upgrade your aircraft. So it's going to take a while, and up until now I still only have a level 3 a level 3 F4U normal variant and a level 2 F4U white variant in the War in the Pacific maps. And that's something else I really don't like. The fact that for individual maps, the individual vehicles have their own skill tree. So what that means is there is no, in Battlefield 1, you just buy the package with war bonds and you've got it on every other map with for every other faction. It's not how it works. You have to get that skill tree for that faction. You have to earn it. You have to earn everything for every faction. Basically, there's no you pay this war bonds and you know now you've unlocked this for every faction. No. And the leveling system to get guns is just frustrating. Level 20 for a good gun. It's a good proposition. The thing is, it's frustrating and it's an endeavor that takes a while to get there. It's not the easiest thing to get to level 20, and I'm pretty sure the highest rank I'm at right now on any of my classes is rank 12 on assault. And that's not even one of the classes that I really want the rank 20 weapon for. I'd really like the MG42 or the Thompson M1928A and stuff like that. But because of that whole level 20 skill lock, I either need to pay or I need to put in a ridiculous amount of hours to get myself that weapon. And both options are equally disheartening, to say the least. Because you could either waste your hard-earned money, or you can force yourself to play the game to get a gun that'll only make the game fun for a couple of rounds before you get bored. And now what? You go ahead and grind on another class for the class 20 weapon. Yeah, you have it now, and now you're bored. And really, yes, Battlefield 5 does get that boring that easily. It only really has 2 main features to it, as in maps and stuff like that. And most of them are your standard run-of-the-mill Allies versus Germany and America versus Japan maps. And I really enjoy both of those types of maps, but really I'd say they could have added a lot more. They had a lot more potential for things they could have added. For example, I would have loved to have seen some sort of Japan versus China, Japan versus Korea type of map, some sort of Normandy type of map, maybe even a Germany versus France type of map. And they went all fictional with the first trailer, so they could have decided to throw in maybe just a quick little sci-fi map in there and given us a Germany invading America type of map, or maybe an America invading Japan type of map. Something like that. Some alternate reality sci-fi type of thing. Because, the trailer was already sci-fi enough. But really, the biggest complaint as to what DICE and EA missed out on in Battlefield 5 was the Russian campaign, the whole Russian front. And I'd say, yeah, that's pretty major to miss out on. It would have made a great DLC, would have been able to add some great weapons to it, the PPSH, to name a few. Could have added T-34s, Yaks, IL bombers, all those types of things. They could have added Mosins. There was so much potential for the Russian front, but unfortunately, it never made it into Battlefield 5. And going back and playing that game, it's just odd knowing that it's a rushed game. Unlike playing Battlefield 1, where it's a different experience. Even though the fan base isn't as big as it used to be, and players online isn't that much, you still feel that sense of community, that fun you get playing the game that you won't really get with Battlefield 5. You can play Battlefield 5 with friends and it still won't really feel as entertaining as it would with playing Battlefield 1 alone. Battlefield 1 is one of those games where playing alone or with friends, it really doesn't make a difference, too big of a difference in gameplay. But playing alone with friends, it's something pretty fun to do, and I would recommend, especially playing with a Discord server. Not being sponsored or anything by them, but might as well go ahead and check out the BFEE channel on Discord. That's the Battlefield Easter egg channel. The guys there, they're pretty helpful, They helped me with getting the Peacemaker. It was a pretty challenging endeavor, to say the least, and they really simplified it. They were really a great help. There's just no way to put it that sums it up better. And really, that community really deserves a lot of love from the Battlefield community. And I'd say that if you're new to Battlefield 1, things like that, or if you're just new to the Battlefield community overall, it's a pretty friendly environment to be in. So go ahead and check it out if you'd like. I'll put the link in the description. So anyways, continuing on with that rant. Battlefield 5, not too good of a game. Battlefield 1, pretty good game. Still missing a little bit of content, I would say. For Battlefield 1, some content I really would have loved to have seen is something taking place in Asia. Potentially the Siege of Tsingtao, with German troops fighting Japanese troops on an island. Would have been a quite interesting concept. Some other concepts I would have really loved to have seen is a fictional German invasion of New York, or something along the lines of that. and maybe even a German invasion of Russia, which would have been very fitting for later stages in the war. And maybe even some Turkish versus Anzac battles that actually happen on mainland and not just on landing zones. Some of these aren't historically accurate, but they'd still make pretty cool additions to the game. But anyways, continuing on with what I'd like in Battlefield 6. Straightforward, what I'd like in Battlefield 6 would just be a good mechanical system, a good player base, a good amount of content. Delayed a year, it won't really even matter as long as they go ahead and make it a good game. Like I said, I wouldn't mind if they delayed it a year or two just to make sure that it wasn't rushed and came out playable with good content and was actually functionable on older consoles, because I'm still not really convinced on buying a next-gen console at this moment. And overall, Battlefield 6, with the new next-gen possibilities, there's just so much to expect. But those are really the main things I expect. A complete 180 of Battlefield 5 and the train wreck that it was. Because really, I feel that this time the stakes are very high for EA and DICE, as Battlefield 5 was such a flop and failure and a stain on their reputation that Battlefield 6 could potentially make or break their fan base. Because another bad game would most likely run them into the ground, and their fan base and player base would most likely evacuate and flee to some other game series. Or maybe they'd stay loyal and come back to other games, to other Battlefield games that were actually playable. But a Battlefield 5 repeat this time, and they themselves know it, wouldn't be favorable for them or us. And we just really hope they take this into consideration. And really, I think would be absolutely amazing would be changes to immersion. For example, let's say you have a map where you have an enemy team who's holed up in a bunker, and your team is an attacking force. It'd be pretty cool if they let the enemy team set up defenses and stuff like that before the assault, and if they let your attacking team set up raiding parties, scouts, and things like that. That really add on to the immersion. What would also add on to the immersion would be, let's say, instead of loading screens when you're playing operations or game modes like that, instead have every map already rendered onto a basically giant template, so that way, to add on to immersion, you could either take a ride or walk to the next map, to the next battlefield. And something like that would be a pretty cool feature implemented into Battlefield 6. And my main theories as to what the game could potentially be is either a historic shooter, which I theorize would go from Battlefield 1 up to the most futuristic battlefield that there is. Just the mashup of all those battlefields together. And what I feel would result of that would actually be pretty interesting to see. For example, I feel like gun selection would be very important, as in, you could play a really futuristic map where people would have access to futuristic guns, but if you want to, you could stick to an old gun. For example, let's say they decide to stick in Battlefield Bad Company, and then you want to play around with a World War One gun or something along the lines of that. You could, and they'll let you. You'll be able to select it, but the same wouldn't be able to go backwards, vice versa. You wouldn't be able to use some highly futuristic gun in a World War One type of setting, but in a futuristic type of setting, you'd be able to use an old style gun or gadget or things like that. I really feel like that'd be a pretty interesting concept. And my second theory for what Battlefield 6 could be like is some sort of remaster of one of the older Battlefields with a lot of new content and with a lot of new capabilities. If it's a remaster, my guesses are Battlefield 3 and 4. I'd really like to see Battlefield 4 remastered. I've played it for a bit. I'd say it's a pretty fun game, and I'd like to see it remastered. But yeah, with that being said, I really hope that Battlefield 6 isn't a flop like Battlefield 5 was. And well, I guess this is really the end of my rant. So if you're wondering why I'm talking and speaking the way I am, I basically did all this in one take. That's why there's so many and me thinking, because this is all in one recording. I don't really feel like editing or anything like that. It's a rant. And sometimes I just do these randomly and feel like doing these randomly. So I'll post a lot more of these on my channel. And if you like these, you should probably subscribe. I don't know. If you don't like this type of content, why are you even really here? And if you're just really here for background noise, that's cool too, subscribe for more background noise if that's what you're here for. But anyways, yeah, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. There will be plenty more. And sincerely, this is Arrow, signing off for tonight.